Hi folks, HR Funk here. With a handgun that I told you recently that I have been very eager to get in for review, what I have here is a Canik MC9 micro compact 9mm pistol, and these things have been very difficult even for dealers to get in. In fact, I was at Hot Munitions a couple of days ago and they said this is the only one they've been able to get. And in fact, I've been told explicitly I'm not allowed to buy this one because they want to have it on hand for customers to be able to come in and handle and even take outside and shoot to see if this might be something they want to purchase for themselves. And those customers are then going to have to get on an order list in order to get those handguns as they start to come in. So if you want to contact Hot Munitions and get on a waiting list for the MC9, by all means do so. But they were good enough to loan me this handgun to bring back for review. So in this video, I'm going to give you a close-up look at the MC9. I'll tell you about its features and functions. And before it's all over, we'll head out to the range and see how it performs. So here we go. So I gotta say, it's becoming a little repetitive to cover all the accessories that accompany your purchase of a Canik firearm, but I feel like I'm doing a disservice to people that are unfamiliar with Canik by not covering these things. So I'm going to run through this very quickly. Along with your pistol itself, you get a nice hard case that you see here for storage of your handgun and transportation back and forth to the range. This has latches and it is a lockable hard case. When you open the case, and I'll remove the center divider for a moment, you find your handgun itself, which we see here. The MC9 comes with 2 magazines. A 12-round magazine is installed in the pistol currently, and a 15-round magazine is off to the side. With the 15-round magazine is a magazine loader. There is an extra base plate here, and this is to replace the shorter magazine base plate. If you don't like the finger extension that you see here, you can switch this over and have just the flat base plate. There is a lock. There is also a holster that comes with your handgun, and this is a pretty good holster. It can be configured as both an inside the waistband or outside the waistband holster. And panning up just a little bit, and maybe I'll magnify this a little bit, we see some of the other things that come along with the handgun itself. There are 2 additional back straps for a total of 3 when we include the one that's already installed on the pistol. There is cleaning gear. There is a punch for disassembling the handgun if that becomes necessary. And there is this tool, which actually contains Torx bits and screws that can be used for mounting an optic to the pistol. So you get an entire system when you purchase a Canik pistol. The divider that I took out a little while ago has your manual and other necessary paperwork. So now, after covering that, I'm going to switch gears and we will focus on the MC9 itself. And here is the handgun itself, sans case and accessories. And I should probably call this handgun by its entire name. This is the Canik Mete MC9. And I specify that because it does demonstrate some of the same design features we see in other handguns in the Mete line, beginning with the FDE color that we see on this particular pistol. And there are 3 different versions of the Mete MC9 depending upon your preference for color. There is obviously the all flat dark earth color. There's another version that is all black, and then there's a 2-tone version with the black slide and barrel and the FDE frame. So depending upon which one of those you prefer, you can have your choice of color combinations. And here's a view of the port side of the MC9. The MC9, as I said earlier in the video, is chambered for the 9mm Parabellum cartridge. It is considered by Canik to be a micro compact, hence the MC, part of its nomenclature. And currently it has an MSRP of $439, but because of the rarity of this pistol at the moment, I don't know what that price is going to look like if you run across one of these at your local dealer. Now, according to the propaganda on the Canik website, the Mete MC9 was in development for a period of 3 years, and it was developed specifically for the concealed carry market. Now, obviously, there have been a lot of other companies that have come out with options in that period of time. Canik, on the other hand, opted to take their time and incorporate all the features they thought were going to be most preferred by concealed carriers. Now, as I said before, the MC9 does come with 2 magazines, both a 12-round magazine and a 15-round magazine. And installed on the 12-round magazine is that finger rest that I mentioned, which is good because absent that, and if you choose to use the flat base plate on the smaller magazine, there's really no place for your little finger, or at least no place for my little finger to go. But with that slight addition, you're able to get a good full grasp on the handgun, which I prefer. For that minimal difference in concealability, I would opt for the greater controllability afforded by that finger rest. The only branding that I see on the magazines is the Canik information itself. I believe these magazines are manufactured by Mecgar, and I've always found Canik magazines to be very, very reliable, so I don't expect these to be any different. They are good quality magazines. There are witness holes in the back, so you can check and see exactly how much ammunition is remaining in your magazine if you need to. And also, if you happen to have magazines from other Canik firearms, like the 15-round magazine from my Mete SF, or the 18-round magazine from my rival Darkside, they will fit, lock in place, and function in your MC9. Turning our attention just a moment to the 15-round magazine that comes with the MC9, you can see it appears to be exactly the same magazine that came with my Mete SF, except it has this larger spacer plate on the bottom to fill that gap at the bottom of the grip. You notice with the other magazine installed that does not have that same feature, there is a little bit of a gap there, which wouldn't really bother me if I was using this magazine, but it might bother some shooters. So Canik fills that space so that you have a good full grip and no gap between your magazine and the bottom of the grip. Starting the top-down look at the Mete MC9 with the sights, you can see the rear sight is all black. There are no dots. It's serrated to keep down on glare. It is generous and slightly U-shaped. The front sight features a single white dot, and this would be your sight picture with just that single white dot, and this is preferred by a lot of shooters these days. The MC9 is optics ready, as you see here. It has a loaded chamber indicator that is both visible and tactile. It features front and rear cocking serrations and low profile ambidextrous slide stop / slide release levers. The MC9 has a 3-slot equipment rail that you see there, a squared off front trigger guard that is textured. It has the same pull down tabs that we see on other Canik pistols, and it has the non-ambidextrous but reversible magazine catch that you see here. Looking at the grip, we can see it has what I would call a medium texturing all the way around, and this is also carried onto the magazine floor plate as soon as I figure out where I put it, which I think is a nice touch just to give you a little bit of added traction when you're holding on with that little finger, as I talked about a little while ago. The back straps can be easily interchanged to customize the grip to the shooter's hand, and I would demonstrate how this is done, but YouTube might melt down if I did that. But simply stated, you drive out this pin, this back strap would come out, you would put another one in place and reinsert the pin. There is very slight beveling to the magazine well, so slight in fact, I'm not entirely sure you're going to be able to see it, but there is a protruding surface here to assist with locating the magazine during a reload. And the texturing that you see on the side of the magazine can also be used to aid in removing a stuck magazine, and that's present even on the smaller magazine that you see here, that little bit of texturing to get a hold of and pull that thing out of there if you need to. The rear of the trigger guard, where it meets the grip, is relieved to help the shooter get a higher grip on the pistol. And the MC9 also features the double undercut of the trigger guard right here, which is intended to help get your support hand a little bit higher, but that's not nearly as prominent as it is on the other Mete pistols. Not that I think that's really all that important. Let's face it, this is not a target handgun. This is intended for defensive use, and for that purpose, I think it's going to be just fine. So as I've been handling the MC9 here in the shop, I was thinking I'm just not blown away by the way it feels in my hand. And I decided to try experimenting with the back straps. I put the large back strap on first. The pistol shipped with the small back strap. And with the large one, still didn't feel all that great. I put the medium back strap on, and this one feels like the best of the bunch, but I guess maybe I'm spoiled by the larger Canik pistols that feel so good in my hand, and this one is just not quite so much. Now again, this is intended for concealed carry. It's not a target pistol, so I can live with the way it feels in my hand, but it feels like it's riding somewhat high in my grip. You might be able to see that right there. And again, it just doesn't quite feel as good as some of the other Canik handguns that I've had a chance to shoot and handle. Now, in perusing the Canik website and also the literature that accompanied the MC9, I couldn't find anything to tell me whether or not the MC9 retains Canik's pre-cocked striker system. And I believe it does. If you watch the rear of the striker closely as I squeeze the trigger, you won't see any movement at all other than the movement of my hand. Before the trigger releases. So I believe this is the standard pre-cock system. Obviously the MC9 does not have any sort of external safeties that have to be engaged or disengaged. So if you're someone who's not comfortable with this type of a handgun with no safeties, just be aware that this does still seem to retain that pre-cocked striker action. One of the most popular things about the Canik pistol is their trigger quality. And all of the Canik pistols that I have ever handled have had very, very good triggers. And I noticed the MC9 is not quite to the same level as those other handguns. Now, I understand this. With a handgun that's intended for the concealed carry market, that might be carried in any number of ways and is going to have to be produced from cover and one thing and another, you don't necessarily want a hair trigger on that type of a firearm. And I will get a trigger weight on this shortly. But if you watch closely, there is some grit right there in the take-up. You hit the stop, and as I squeeze through that, it's just a little heavier. I'm not really noticing any creep per se, but there is a little bit of over travel. Again, I repeat, this is not a target pistol. And for anyone who's concerned about reset, that's probably also a little bit more movement before the trigger resets than it is with some of the other Canik pistols. So let's see if we can get a trigger pull weight on the MC9. And sometimes this can be a little tricky with firearms that have an inertial safety, like this one does. And I'm going to try to get a good trigger pull weight here and not over pull this. So pretty much right at 4 pounds. 3 pounds, 15.6 ounces. Let's try another one. That time was considerably heavier, 4 pounds, 6.4 ounces. So you might be seeing a little variation in the trigger with the MC9. See if I can get one more here. And that was 4 pounds, 3.2 ounces for a 3-pull average of 4 pounds, 3.1 ounces. So right around 4 pounds is where the trigger is breaking, or just slightly over for the MC9. Looking at the dimensions of the MC9, it has an overall length of 6.1 inches, a barrel length of 3.18 inches, a height of 4.52 inches, and it doesn't specify which magazine that was measured with. I suspect it was this one. A width of 1.12 inches at its widest point, and a weight of 21.27 ounces unloaded. And we're also going to take a look at the loaded weight here with both magazines in just a moment. And here's a look at the weight of the MC9 with the fully loaded 12 round magazine with 1 round in the chamber, and this is 124 grain ammunition. It comes to a weight of 27.2 ounces. And if we swap this out for the fully loaded 15 round magazine, it weighs 28.9 ounces, essentially 29 ounces. So those are the weights with loaded magazines in the MC9. Before I finish up the shop review, I want to talk a little bit about the size of the MC9. Now, Canik does rate this as a micro compact, and I don't think I agree. I would call this a subcompact, but when I compare it with my Springfield Armory Hellcat, you can see the Hellcat is, if I get them lined up there, measurably shorter in overall length. And let me find a magazine to put in here. It is slightly shorter in height, although the Canik does have an extra round of capacity. This is the 11 round magazine in my Hellcat and the 12 round magazine in the MC9. And if I switch these over to the 2 higher capacity magazines, this is now the 13 round magazine in the Hellcat and the 15 round magazine in the MC9. Again, there's about maybe 3/8 of an inch of difference there. Obviously, once again, the MC9 has 2 additional rounds in capacity over and above the Hellcat. When it comes to thickness, if I can find a good view for you to be able to see that, the Hellcat is a little bit thinner, and just overall it's a little less chunky than the MC9. The grip feels a little bit better in my hand. Again, the grip of the MC9 just isn't quite as comfortable as the Hellcat or some of the other Canik pistols. So be aware of all that if you are considering this. Again, I don't consider this a true micro compact. I would put it squarely in the subcompact category. Okay folks, that's going to do it for the shop review. Now let's head out to the range and see how the MC9 performs. And I've arrived on the range to do some shooting with the MC9, and there is mowing going on at the range right now, so hopefully that sound in the background is not going to drown me out or be too distracting for you. In any case, in just a moment, I'm going to start to shoot the MC9, and I'm not going to shoot my usual benched 15-yard accuracy test with this handgun, because this is another one of those handguns that's just not designed for that. I am going to shoot an accuracy test from a distance of 7 yards. I'll shoot that with a 2-handed hold from a standing position, and we'll see what kind of accuracy the MC9 is capable of. And I'd say that's about as accurate as anything you could reasonably ask of the MC9 from that distance of 7 yards. Those 5 shots stayed nice and tight, all right on or around the numeral 1. So now let's move on to some more defensive drills. First up will be some controlled pairs from a distance of 5 yards. Oh, and a malfunction with the MC9. And this is with full metal jacket ammunition. This is Speer Lawman 124 grain FMJs. And an unexpected malfunction. Went nose down into the feed ramp and actually cut a groove in the top of the bullet. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it or not. So let's try this again. Those were all in the range of about 1.5 seconds. The last one was 1.68 seconds, and a nicely centered group in the target. So other than that initial bobble on the second shot of this particular drill, the pistol ran fine. So it's possible that was an ammunition issue, but I don't know. That's just really surprising to me that this handgun had that malfunction. But let's move on. Next up will be some failure drills from a distance of 7 yards. .23 seconds on that one. .24 seconds on that one. At least I'm consistent. Oh, and I pulled the headshot on that last one. 2:11, but I tried to rush that one and pulled that last headshot. And on those failure drills, the body shots all look pretty good. 2 of the headshots look good. This shot is kind of a mystery because the sights looked good. I saw the sights when I pressed the trigger, and that shot wandered over to there. And it could be also what I was talking about back in the shop, where the MC9 just doesn't fit my hand quite as well as I would like it to. Definitely not as well as some of the other Canik handguns that I have. So did that contribute? I don't know. Maybe I just blew it, but I wish that it felt a little bit better so I could at least rule that out. And on we go back to a distance of 15 yards for 5 body shots from that range. And by the way, before I started to shoot the last drill, the failure drill exercise, I did switch to the 15-round magazine. So the failure that I had was with the 12-round magazine, and so far that's been an isolated incident. But I did switch magazines just to see if we would have any issues with this. This time around, I'm going to load this all the way to full capacity of 15 rounds with 1 round in the chamber and fire my way through this drill. And we'll see what the functioning looks like. And I'll fire another drill after that with the 12-round magazine fully loaded with a round in the chamber, just to check the functioning on those and try to see if that was an anomaly or if we might have a functioning issue here. Well, I have 4 good body shots from that distance of 15 yards and a shot that I pulled high. Again, the sights looked good for all of those shots. I didn't feel like I was rushing, but I managed to put one up there. And I'm starting to think this is not me, folks. I'm just not meshing real well with the MC9, and that's what's causing these occasional errant shots. And on we go. Now I have the 12-round magazine fully loaded. I have a round in the chamber. I'm going to back up to a distance of 25 yards. Now, like I said at the beginning of the video, that's not really what this handgun is intended for, but Canik handguns have always performed very, very well for me, so I'm going to give it a try from there. Mainly, I'm looking at the functioning, but we'll see what kind of accuracy I get from that distance too. Well, that's a little bit more like it. Nice accuracy from 25 yards. Everything stayed nice and well centered in the chest. I've got 4 out of the 5 in this small, very center square of the target. One of them I pulled just below that. So at that shot tempo, and I did noticeably slow down, you might have been able to tell as you were watching. At that shot tempo, I'm able to maintain pretty good accuracy with the MC9. But at just a slightly faster shot tempo, when I was shooting from 15 yards, that starts to fall apart, which again is starting to feel like, to me, that's something to do with the ergonomics and the way I'm holding the handgun or the way I'm not holding the handgun or whatever, but it's basically just an issue with me meshing with this pistol. All right, folks, moment of truth. Is the Mete MC9 a 7-yard tack driver? Now, if memory serves, the last 2 Caniks that I've tested out here were not only tack drivers, they were first round tack drivers. So the Mete MC9 has a hard act to follow, but let's find out. Well, yes, it did follow that act very well. The Canik Mete MC9 is a tack driver on the very first shot. Folks, I'm going to do something that I rarely do. Be quiet, Rabbi, I heard that. No, I'm going to reshoot my controlled pairs from 5 yards and my failure drills from 7 yards because I just feel like I don't have a good sense for the MC9 yet. I don't know if I'm having a little bit of an off day and that's why some of these shots are going wide. I don't know if for sure if it's something to do with the shootability of the handgun or what exactly, but I want to run some more rounds through it. And I'm going to be using the 12 round magazine as I fire these drills again, which is the one that malfunctioned early on in the video. And I want to see what the functioning looks like. So I'm going to repeat these drills and we'll see how it goes the second time around. .56 seconds. 1.38 seconds. And 1.46 seconds. And that looks a little better. I was running the pistol not super hard that time, but a little harder I think than I did the first time through. There were no functioning issues as you saw, and everything is staying nicely centered. In fact, this is the only one that just barely made it off this center square. Actually, maybe that one's just below it too. This one caught the corner. So now let's try those failure drills again and see how they go. Put it almost the same place as I did the last shot on the last set of failure drills. That was a little better. And I decided to try a few more shots from 15 yards. That's the last of a 50-round box of ammunition through the MC9. So there was only that one functioning issue. But now let's have some last thoughts about the Canik Mete MC9. And if nothing else, at least that's a nice 3-round group to finish up with from 15 yards. So wow, final thoughts about the Canik Mete MC9. Probably the first thing I should say is I had some very lofty expectations for this handgun as I was coming out here, based on my previous experience with the other Canik handguns that are now in my collection. My rival Darkside is an amazing handgun set up in a match configuration. My recently acquired Mete SF is equally impressive as a fighting handgun, so I was expected to be pretty much blown away by the MC9 just like I was those two handguns, and I really haven't been. Now, in all fairness, there was only one malfunction. It could have been a bad round of ammunition. Maybe there was something wrong with the overall length or what have you. Now, it was factory ammunition, so I don't really expect that. But that's a possibility. You know, there is always a potential for a semi-automatic handgun to have a feeding issue based on ammunition magazines and basically the whim of nature. So I don't want to hold that one malfunction against it, but I did want to note that it occurred. When it comes to actual mechanical accuracy, this is a very, very accurate little handgun, as I demonstrated in the initial accuracy test, as we saw again with the 25-yard shooting, and we saw on the tack shot. And just like the other Canik handguns, this little pistol was a first-round tack driver, so that's impressive. I think my misgivings come with actually shooting it and the way it feels to me, which I'm just not that crazy about. And I know the MC9 is sort of the darling of YouTube right now, and everybody that reviews it just gushes over how much they like it, what a fabulous handgun it is, and you can't find anything better out there, and I just don't think I agree. I think that I would shoot my Springfield Armory Hellcat just as well, if not better, than I did this, and it's a smaller handgun. I shoot a lot of other compact handguns as well or better than I've shot this one. And as I've said several times, maybe it's just something about the design of the grip and the ergos of the MC9 and me and the way I shoot and the way I'm used to shooting. That happens sometimes. There are some firearms that shoot better in the hands of some shooters than they shoot in the hands of other shooters, which is why there are so many different kinds of firearms. But yeah, I'm not blown away by this. I'm not going to be hounding Hot Munitions to try to get them to sell me this after they already said they wouldn't, because I'm just not that crazy about it. It's a nice little handgun. It comes with all of the accessories that you get with every single handgun from Canik, so there's all that going for it. But I think for me, I'm just going to return this one, and I'll continue my search for some other handgun that's going to knock my Hellcat off the top of the pile as being my most carried semi-auto CCW handgun. And that's going to do it for the video, folks. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments, as always, make sure you forward those to me. Remember, if you purchase anything from Optics Planet, be sure to use my discount code, which is... And if you use that discount code, it's good for 5% off your purchase from Optics Planet. Also, remember the discount code from Hot Munitions. If you go to Hot Munitions, you can use my discount code there, which is HRFUNK10, and that'll save you 10% off your purchase from Hot Munitions. And thank you to Hot Munitions for loaning me the Canik MC9 for this video today. Last but not least is the Target sponsor for the channel. We saw one of their targets out there today. Go to Targets online, check out their inventory, and see if they have anything that's going to meet your target needs. See you next time, folks. And until then, good shooting. Bye-bye.